Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things Overwatch. I am your host, Tumblely Drunk, and tonight, on episode 227, we have a lot to unpack. We have new Overwatch lore. Yes, I said that right, lore. Like, remember that? You know, a thing we've been promised for a while and that it just never happens? Well, we got some. In the new short story, Stone by Stone, we have some new patches, a new PTR patch. We got the return of our dev and savior, Papa Jeffrey Cap praise him,
Praise him.
without a beard, which has shell-shocked the Overwatch League community, especially all the teams out there, which you've probably seen if you've been following their Twitter accounts. We got more roster moves. Well, really, like, we got a metric crap ton of roster news, which has kind
Yeah.
of been like an everyday occurrence here as of late. A whole lot to dive into tonight. So before we do that and introduce you to my co-host, let me just quickly take a moment to thank everyone who is joining us tonight live on Twitch. And of course, thank all of our repeat listeners out there. So joining me as always, as you can tell, Editor's already in festive spirits. He's got his Gladiators gear ready for an obvious reason. Some pretty big sign-ins on that front, which we'll be talking about for sure. And, he's just one of those guys who prefers to just start playing Christmas music on November 1st, so he already has his hat at the ready. All that good stuff. Ed, how are you
Mhm.
doing tonight?
I am doing just great. I have officially thrown my Santa hat, into. I am all in on the Gladiators. After their signings, luckily I already had a custom Edinar Gladiators jersey, in the closet, and I do have the Gladiators Decay jersey, which I might bust out. But no, things are going pretty good. It's been a fun week, fun 2 weeks really. Cold War came out for Call of Duty. The new Hearthstone expansion's been a lot of fun. Um, so yeah, it's I've been enjoying it.
Yeah, what a crazy week where, initially I was like, all right, we're probably gonna have a ton of like Overwatch League news. Then we got this new short story, and then, we got a dev update to coincide with that, but then there's also something else coincided with the short story, and then before I know it, like there's a new PTR patch, and I was just like, whoa guys, like
Be like,
slow the F
we are
down.
not
Like
used to this.
like what is going on? It feels like it's just a complete 180, whereas these past couple of weeks it's primarily just been, all right, well, this is what is happening this week in F5 off season for the Overwatch League, and on the Overwatch front, crickets.
Hmm.
So I'm really excited to jump in and talk about general Overwatch. It's been a while. It's mostly been about event talk here and there, not too much outside of that. But we got a new short story, Ed, and you and I finally got around to reading it today. This one is Stone by Stone, which was written by the award-winning author Christy Golden, who, if anyone has read the Warcraft novels, I'm sure that's a name you've heard of by now, and if not, well, you're just behind the times on
The
that
hell is
front.
wrong with you?
And like we even learned from the developer update that Christie has written some of Papa Jeffrey Cap's praise him favorite novels, not just
Mhm.
within Blizzard, but just all together.
Yeah, because you know what other genre she does before. So she took a break between WoW and like writing the WoW books, and then actually working for Blizzard.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote Star Wars
Mm-hmm.
novels. So Star Wars and Blizzard doesn't get any nerdier than that.
Absolutely. So Stone by Stone is essentially a story telling the start of well, not necessarily the start, but like the Vishkar Corporation is a major part of this story when they inadvertently destroy the sacred statue of Aurora. Now, this short story primarily revolves around Symmetra, who has been hired to essentially fix the damages that have been caused. We also have Zenyatta in this short story as well. So here we are, like, we heard Zen lore was coming, It is here in this one, and I have to say, like there was a lot going on in this
Yes.
particular short story, and it's definitely one of the more emotional lore bits that we've
Mhm.
actually had here in quite some time. Now, basically, what happens is, there's this PR nightmare because of the damage that is being done to the statue of Aurora. So Symmetra's basically just in there to patch things up, and Zenyatta invites her to stay at the temple in order to learn more about Aurora, to learn more about the Omnic Faith. So, at its core, this story essentially revolves around this journey of understanding.
Yeah.
So, Vishkar is basically just like, all right, like, we're just gonna chalk this up to, like, an earthquake, even though, like, there was no seismic activity,
Yeah.
like, at all.
No, they're just
And
like, blame it on this.
yeah, so what happens essentially is they broke ground too much too soon, and those vibrations just caused damage to that concentrated construction that was going on.
Hmm.
And essentially, what's impacted is the statue of Aurora, who was the first sentient Omnic. And there's a lot to unpack with Aurora in herself, because she essentially sacrificed herself in order to grant sentience to all others, and of course, in this case, that being the Omnics as a whole. And we kind of get to see like this budding friendship grow between Zenyatta and Symmetra throughout this, where they're just trying to get to know one another, because it's really hard to know uh, what these people need without learning more about them, trying to understand, their religion, their cultures, and, just the things that they do, and just like what Aurora and this temple meant to them.
Hmm.
So Zenyatta essentially urges Symmetra to stay at the temple for, I believe it was like a week span here, to just better understand the community happenings that are going on right now. And one of my favorite parts about this is Zenyatta, like at the start, is just straight up has no chill at all. He basically just flat out calls Symmetra ignorant. and he kind of like walks back a little bit, saying like, well, that's kind of like how everyone begins, and then you learn more, and then you kind of adjust over the course of time. But like I cackled so hard knowing like, damn dude, like this is really how we're gonna start this, right? Like you're just
Hmm.
gonna call Symmetra out on her shit, and then we'll just go from there. So like I thought that was absolutely hysterical, as well as there was this little bit of a conversation between them when they bring up Mondada's assassination, and they were talking about spare parts. And it kind of grew into the discussion over whether or not Omnics have a soul. Because sure, you can find Omnic replacement parts, but nothing can actually like resonate like a
Yeah.
soul can. So like that's not something that you can just easily pick up and find. Like it's irreplaceable at that point. And then there was the oddities of kind of like the two of them not really understanding like some human idioms or sayings, where you have Zenyatta, who is essentially taking everything literally at face value. And I know some of them that were coming up in the conversation were like, lending someone a hand, like a cat having your tongue, and things like that. So it's just like, regardless of the human or the omnic nature, both of these characters themselves were really struggling to understand what people were actually meaning. And I thought that was very fascinating.
Yeah. Like Zenyatta is basically an Omnic Drax from Guardians of the Galaxy. Um, like just takes everything literally. Went over your head. Nothing goes over my head. I would catch it. Uh, so yeah, those were all very interesting points. Like the interaction was pretty cool. One thing I will say, and this has been brought to my attention, that I have always referred to Zenyatta as her.
Mm-hmm.
This story confirms So I apologize for that. This story confirms Zenyatta's a he. It does. If we're to take this as lore, Zenyatta is a he because there's parts where it's like they're talking about Zenyatta and they're like he said, and stuff like that. So I actually found that interesting, where I don't know, where they kind of have genders for the Omnics, which is fascinating because a lot of people assume they had I think Booger put it best, like they have a they.
Mm-hmm.
Or something like that. But no, according to this lore, Zenyatta is a he, and they have genders with Omnics, which is interesting. Which leads more to the soul talk. Like it's things that if you weren't an Omnic, you probably didn't think of it like that. Like you didn't think that they might have a soul. You didn't think that they might have genders, stuff like that. But they're more complex than what any of us know. So I thought that was actually really cool. The other thing, and I know we're going to talk about it, but I'm bringing it up now, is the cooking. Okay, I got to bring that up. And when I was reading this, it was only like a couple paragraphs. It wasn't like a major plot point. Where like Zenyatta's cooking this amazing meal for Symmetra, and Symmetra's like, well, how can you cook something so well you can't taste? And I immediately flash back to Bender from Futurama. Because they had like a whole episode on like how Bender is a robot, so he has no sense of taste. How can he actually cook food? Well, turns out he put LSD in everyone's food. I do not think Zenyatta put LSD in everyone's food. But it just brought me back to that situation.
Hold on, Ed. Hold on. I'm not gonna rule it out, okay? Because there was a point there where they're just like, okay, well, like everyone seems content just because they've had a little bit of a taste. You know, they have a little bit of food in their stomach and they're as happy as can be, and they can just go back to doing whatever they were doing. So, like, I don't want to say outright, no, that's not what's going on here.
Yeah. I will say this about this short story is it didn't have a climax to me.
Okay.
Like you didn't have that like oh snap moment. I guess the oh snap moment is when Symmetra built a really cool statue. But that's like just the plot. She has to build a statue. But there's not like it seems like it would be it's missing a lot.
I basically took away from this the majority of the story revolved around Symmetra challenging her perceptions of how she sees the world.
Which I'm totally fine with. But the big payoff is she did what she was sent there to do. She just made a good statue. That's like to me, that's a very anticlimactic like payoff. You know, so it's I guess that's my only knock on it. It's very well written and the story is very good. I just think the payoff wasn't there. And another thing is it doesn't lend itself to furthering that story. So it didn't have that big payoff, but then it also didn't leave room for more after that. Really.
There's some things here that became canon, primarily like Transcendence being one. So there was a bit there where we learned more about Aurora and, her sacrifice to, give the other Omnics life, essentially, here. And, she did this without knowing that the others would actually be experiencing sentience. And, they talked about how, like, basically what happened was she was engulfed in, this golden light. She started to expand, at which point she had reached a level of transcendence, essentially, And she was basically being called the Iris at that point. And they go more into detail about transcendence, in regards to how it is a symbol both of love and respect for oneself, as well as the universe. And like it all leads up to this whole like reconstruction phase, as you were mentioning, and up to that point, with Symmetra staying with Zenyatta at this temple, Zenyatta basically gave her this orb of perception. And they were talking.
Zenyatta buff confirmed.
They were talking a lot. At least it was written about Symmetra's ADHD. Really, where she kept like fiddling with this orb, and they really like honed in on that aspect of the character, which I was really happy to see, because like I know people have wanted to learn more, especially when it comes to like your representation and things like that, to feel more at home with that sort of character who has at times in the past, in some of the lore, is kind of just come off kind of cold in a way. And instead of using like the blue light technology that we've been so accustomed to seeing with Symmetra, when she is repurposing the damage that was done here, we see this Aurora statue, and rather than it being completely redone or like built anew, she actually kept it with its imperfections in place. And outside of that, we did get to see all the fractures, and we had this honey-hued light to this statue. And, so instead of the blue light, we are essentially like getting this golden light. And I know a lot of people are like, wait a minute, like, are they hinting back at Symmetra possibly going to a support role again? And I was like, I don't want to take that too literally, especially when a lot of this was just built around perception. So I'm not going to go that far ahead, but I thought this short was really well done. I like the idea of that internal conflict, where the enemy in this story was really just Symmetra's ignorance in regards to her understanding of the world around her, and she really got challenged to just take everything in, because she was there for an entire week. And, without having that sort of stay, like, Vishkar would not have known how to handle that situation. Because initially they're like, oh, we'll just throw them a bunch of money, and that should, like, leave them content, when that's really not something that they were even thinking about. It probably never even crossed their mind. And they didn't want, like, a new place of worship when they already had one that was still functional, and things like that. So the enemy in this story wasn't like a physical person, but it was more of a conundrum both on the ethical side as well as cultural.
Well, you went full like deep dive on that. Like you went full on like, all right, let's get the true meaning behind all of this. And I completely agree with you. Like it fits to the like the message that was there, and the story and all of that was great. It really was. I God, I would have even loved it if they would have just done like a story, like a full, like if they would have had almost like a flashback of Aurora and stuff like that. Not just explaining this is what they did, but like a flashback type of thing. That would have been really cool. But I think everyone is in agreement that we want more short stories, but we're not going to get them anytime soon.
Few and far between.
Yeah. I mean, we're still missing like 3 of the 5 Tracer comics.
Well, that was a monthly thing. We've had 2.
We've had 2?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just looking.
It was 1 a month.
Oh yeah.
The things you forget. But anyways, a lot of stuff going on with Symmetra, obviously. And with this short story, they also did have a new weekly challenge Well, technically longer than a week because it's going on for the month. But they have the Restoration Challenge for Symmetra that is going on until November 30th. So, by now you guys know how this works. You accrue wins in quick play, competitive, or arcade. And you can get the Meramont Symmetra player icon spray and epic skin. And then they were also doing the Twitch tie-ins where you can earn up to 6 unique challenge sprays by watching Overwatch streamers on Twitch, with new unlocks happening every 2 hours. So basically, to get everything, you need 9 wins in-game, 6 hours watched for the Overwatch streams, and of course, you need to make sure that you have your Battle.net linked with your Twitch account, all of that good stuff. And again, that's not in one sitting. You could spread it out. It doesn't have to be all one channel or anything like that. But it's just something to kind of distract us. But Ed, let's be real here. Nothing had been more polarizing or distracting than the start of that developer update. The first time you saw Papa Jeffrey Cap praise him, and seeing that shaven face, what happened there? All of a sudden, it's 5 minutes, maybe 10, and then all these Overwatch League teams changed their Twitter profile icon to Jeff's Kurt look, and I couldn't even tell, who was who, because everyone had it, so then all these tweets are rolling out, and you're just, looking and be like, I gotta check the handle, because otherwise I'm not going to know who this is actually being sent from.
Okay. As someone with a beard, I completely understand why Jeff shaved it.
Mm-hmm.
Because unless you have a beard, you do not know how uncomfortable wearing a mask is when you have one. You wear a mask and your inside is just sweaty.
Mm-hmm.
You take it off and your beard is just sweaty. So I've actually contemplated just shaving off my beard just for that reason. So I completely get it. What threw me off when I first turned it on was not the shaven beard. So I'm like, why are you doing this outside? That's what really got me. I was like, what are you doing outside there, buddy?
He couldn't remember what the outside world looked like. That's what I chalked it up to.
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It's just I wasn't expecting anything that major.
Right. And really quick, I do want to read what Misfit wrote in our Twitch chat about the short, saying that she was fighting a battle with her autism, her literal takes on things, and how Vishkar operates, i.e. just throwing money at it. I love the story because it was typical to everything they have done so far. Yeah, that corporation has done some odd things, and, typical business talk, let's just throw them, hush money, that will keep them content. No, that's definitely not the case. They just need that LSD lace and yada food to keep them content. There you go. But anyways, back to the dev update. So, he brushed up on the new short story, the challenge, and then he hinted at 2 things, which, as of this recording, are actually on the public test realm. So we had a PTR update today featuring the Priority Pass system. So basically what this is, Edinar, is if you are playing an impacted role, so one that is currently in high demand, it's essentially trying to encourage people to play what the game needs. So if you're short on tanks, if you're short on healers, basically if you are flex queuing, so you're queuing for all 3, you're basically going to be accruing these passes where it can speed up the queue time if you are wanting to play something that has a slower queue time, like a damage dealer. And you can bank upwards of 40 passes with this system. So the goal here is to speed up queue times for everyone by encouraging that sort of flex behavior. And when you're using the pass, you'll actually be seeing two queue times. It will try to tell you, okay, what's your estimated queue time using the pass for, that speed up process. And then it would show you the estimated time for what it would be without it. And, they might tweak the numbers a little bit in regards to how many passes you can actually have in storage. But, if you're in a group queue or anything like that, if one of the roles isn't particularly in low demand, then like you're not suffering from that. So we'll only be impacting that impacted role as opposed to like punishing everyone within that group. So a good way for people to just like, roll into whatever essentially in quick play, get these, and then, maybe they want to play DPS in comp. So maybe instead of, waiting 10 to 30 minutes or something, like maybe that will cut down in half. Or at least that's how it's supposed to work. Whether or not that will actually happen remains to be seen, because obviously the PTR isn't going to be the best data collection for a system like this, because you're already negating 99% of the player base, so a lot of the data will actually come in hand once this gets patched through to the live servers. But think of it as like a fast pass for like the amusement park. Sure, you're going to save some time waiting in line. You're still going to have a little bit of a wait.
Yeah, and it also encourages, it's not like, okay, we're encouraging you to only play support or support and tank for faster queues. It's more like a give and take type of thing, which I think is a good alternative to this. Be like, hey, play support for a match, get a faster queue time next game as DPS. Like, it's the give and take. I like this because they need to do whatever they can to reduce queue times for DPS. And this is the problem though with this is queue times aren't that bad for 80% of the game.
Right.
Player base, 80 to 85%. Like, you're looking at DPS queue times under 5 minutes. And that's not bad. Like, under 5 minutes for a DPS queue is not bad. When you get to the top 15 to 20%, I don't know if this does enough for them to be like, yeah, I'll play support this game. Because most of them are either like, you hate to say it, like pros, one tricks, streamers, and stuff like that. Like, some streamers can get away with flexing, like Seagull can play DPS tank or support on stream, but like someone like IDDQD is not like a, hey, I'm gonna play support type of thing. So I don't know how effective it will be. It's a cool change. I just don't know how effective it will actually be.
But like, I know in our area, there's still having times where even if we are doing quick play or competitive, and we're not knocking out every role, we still have seen queue times of like 10 minutes, like if we're queuing as a DPS, essentially, which isn't bad because that's not a long time for us to just shoot the shit for a little bit, or just like hop in like arcade mode or something.
Now, so here's the thing. Here's the counterpart. Let's say me and you queue up together. You queue as support and tank. I queue as DPS. We flip-flop the next time. So will our team every turn get the the quick queue times?
Yes.
So if you queue with a 5-stack or a 6-stack, you're actually going to get quicker queue times if everyone just picks, tank, support, damage. You're going to get much quicker queue times. So that is a way that it could be helpful. But for solo play, if you're just playing by yourself, I don't think this will affect you that much.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see, like, are more people just going to be using this for competitive? Like, what's the breakdown going to be for the pass usage across the game modes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be really interesting to see what they do. Um, like again, we're not gonna hear the results. Like, hey, our average queue time went down this amount,
Mhm.
unless it's significantly awesome, and they want to tout how awesome it is, which would be awesome. But yeah, I think it's interesting. There are some other things that they did announce, like to the replay viewer.
Yeah, basically new features that they were wanting to add. And what's cool about this, Ed, is just the fact that, Capline outright's like, all right, we got two audiences in mind with the replay viewer, right? We have the esports side, so we're talking about your observers. Then the other side was like content creators. So what's happening here is they're basically giving us more control, whether it is better camera controls, changes to the user interface. You can change how the player outlines show up on screen. You have the ability to turn off character names, nameplates, health bars, things like that. Also, the ability to turn off capture sounds, which is actually really good, especially if whatever you're working on requires voiceover. I mean, to me, that's definitely the biggest one out of the lot.
Yeah.
Now, they did have like more details about what all is happening on that front and the priority pass system with the patch notes, and I haven't really had an opportunity yet because that just dropped not that long ago to take a closer look at it, but both of these features are on the public test room right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know for a while now, we've always kind of thought, Replay Viewer is going to be a great tool, and a lot of people are going to be using it, but really, I've talked to other content creators, and features like this still require a ton of time.
Yes.
Especially when you factor in like video editing, doing voiceover work, and things like that. And it's really hard to envision how much of a window just quality of life or just general improvements can actually narrow that timing down. Because it's still going to be a lot of effort and an undertaking in itself. But, ease of access is always something that we're striving for. Obviously, you want
Yeah.
more people to get their hands on these tools and to use them more frequently. Whether or not that's going to be enough or we'll see like a huge boost or anything remains to be seen, but I need to see this stuff in play before I really get a good read on how it's going to affect the content creation side of it.
Yeah. People like here's my hot take, I guess you could kind of call on it. Like, people love the idea of this, but I don't know if they actually will use it. As much as like people are like, oh, I'm so excited for this. I don't know if that's something that people are going to actually use, because like you said, it will take so much into account, like for trying to edit stuff like that and work that right. Yeah, obviously people will do it, but like those are probably like the bigger name people.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about your Janes and Yiska and stuff like that. The majority of people will not be using this to its full potential. It's awesome that they have it up there, but I don't know if it's going to be something that is that used. But it just is good to know that they're just improving it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, not about what they improved, like It's more that they're actually improving it. Because they have probably one of the best like spectator views of any game I've seen or watched. Because let's look at the big esports. You have League of Legends. Well, that's just an aerial view. Like I mean, it's a different kind of game, and Call of Duty and CS:GO are kind of the same as Overwatch. You have to be on the right person at the right time. So it's awesome. I think the more they can do, the better.
Right on.
But
All right, well let's talk about the new patches that dropped. We had one drop in on November 17th, which has a feature update for minimum latency support. So what this is for your custom games is you are able to set a target latency that is going to level the playing field between the competitors, whether they are 5 or 500 miles apart. So if you are on higher latency than the target, you're not going to have basically a conditional delay. If you're lower latency than a target, players will have their traffic delayed to meet that target. So at its core, the design is to work with a variety of different network conditions in the hope of keeping everyone within that lobby within 8 milliseconds of that target setting. So it's all about, the have fun, play fair, goal of Overwatch to try to even out the playing field for competitive integrity. And, this is obviously for us going to be more noticeable only during, game nights, because let's be realistic, Ed, outside of that, we're really not doing a whole lot of customs.
No. We are not at all. I do want to bring up something that Misfit brought up in chat. That is, I think, it's pertaining to replay. Is if they could release the esports VODs faster, so the actual Overwatch League games faster, that would be the best thing they could do. We want to do more great plays and how and why teams did what they did. But by the time it comes out Tuesday morning, by the time you edit, it's already time to start talking about the next week's matches. So yeah, it would be awesome if they could get that all up by Sunday night. You know what I mean?
Hey, if we can't get stats till Tuesday, that doesn't give me the best hope for VODs, unfortunately.
Yes, you are very, very true on that. They are not the best at that, but one can hope.
You never know. Fingers crossed. Maybe they'll be a little bit quicker on that. But new feature update, very good to just even out the playing field. It's not necessarily going to be I'm a better player than you or you're a better player than me, but at least we're within that target region where one of us isn't just going to outright be like, "Oh, it was my peen" or anything like that.
Is that a buff to Roadhog?
That depends on what your latency normally is.
The Roadhog hook coming back. Yeah.
Well, there's some new competitive play happening right now. I don't know if you've seen this. We got No Limits entering competitive for its first season.
Hard pass.
Absolutely. I have no intention.
I don't want to live through that hell again.
I don't want to see the 2CO2 Cree Twinston compositions or whatever the hell people are going to come up with. Hard pass. But, if you want a little bit extra competitive points, if you're that close to getting a golden gun, doesn't hurt to do placements. By all means, do enough to get your CP points and then bow the F out for the rest of the season. But this is not something I'm like, ooh, I'm definitely jumping in.
As controversial as that change was when it first came out, because there was definitely people on the side of, no, you do not get rid of No Limit. That's the integrity of the game. If they brought it back, it would be just horrible. It would just be horrible. Like it was possibly the best change they've ever made to the game.
And when you balance around roll queue for so long,
Mm.
just being like, oh, no limits, and then you're just like,
Yeah, you're
about
just
that.
like, hey, like I still like the 6 Winstons, or let's be real, like if you're on consoles, just doing all Torbjorns.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, just all Torbjorns on that. So, yeah, no, this is for people who hate themselves. That's what this game mode is. If you hate yourself, you're doing you're ranking up in this mode.
Well, there you go. We got some balance updates too with this. Baptiste had a buff to his amplification matrix. For those that aren't good with terminology, that is his ultimate. The width was increased from 5 meters now up to 9 meters. Now, I'm not good at math. That's not quite half. But still, like, that. When you see the visual display of this, that is absolutely massive in game.
Would you call Baptiste window now a bay window?
Yeah. It's definitely to
window
that
joke?
point.
Window joke? Yes, I am making a window joke. No, it's actually really good because like Baptiste ult, while it's good, it's just like you're also sitting ducks.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you want to use it properly, you are just like, hey, let's all group up in here and try and shoot through it. So now you just don't have to be grouped up as much, which is good. So yeah, this is a nice buff to Baptiste.
All right, we also got some changes to Lucio's wall ride. And Ed, I will be honest, when I was reading this, I had no idea what any of this meant. Because there's been so many changes to wall ride that I don't even know how it works. So here it is. Lucio will platform his wall jump boost immediately upon release and jump instead of requiring a second jump press. And Lucio can now also cancel wall rides by pressing crouch, which will not trigger an automatic jump. Now, I know they've done like a lot of like quality of life changes to the way that wall ride works within game. I'm assuming this is just gonna fall in line with all of the others in that regard.
Yeah. When I read this, you want to know how I interpreted it?
What's that?
They updated Lucio's wall ride. And then I'm like, all right, cool, I'm good. I'm out. Like, the thing is you're right. Like, I don't play Lucio all that much, less do I care about, like, the nuances of wall riding.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're just like, we updated this part of Lucio's wall ride. All right, cool. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, basically you're like, all right, does he still stick to walls? Yes. Okay,
Yes.
that's all I need to know.
Can I still not wall ride to save my life? Yes.
So essentially, no change.
Yes. This is good. Definitely a change to Lucio that will never affect me because I cannot wall ride as Lucio. The only time I can wall ride as Lucio is when we are on the spawn and I'm just going back and forth in the room.
Or if it's just a round pillar.
Yeah. Yeah.
It does all the work for me.
So if you're ever in a match with me and you see me on Lucio, we gonna die.
Yeah. So that was one patch. I actually had a patch drop earlier today on retail servers. And this is the one that was basically on that prior experimental card. So your support heroes no longer say group up with me when they are missing health and request healing. But we do have the hero updates, which do include Anna's Biotic Grenade projectile passing through allies with full health. Brigida's base health reduced from 175 to 150.
Okay. They reverted the
HP change, because Samito, and a lot of other content creators slash professional players complaining about Brig being too OP with that 25 HP increment.
I don't know if I've ever seen in any game a character more effed with than her. And I don't even think it's close.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's one of those heroes that you're never going to get it right.
She's an enabler.
Yep.
Mostly of enabling hatred. But anyways, we also have Hanzo Storm Arrow now being able to be manually canceled, so quality of life on that end. Same with Maze Ice Wall, can be manually destroyed while you're dead. Same can be said for Symmetra's teleporter as well as Torbjorn's turret. Now, really, the only other balance update, which is an actual update, was with Moira and her Biotic Grasp, where her healing resource consumption rate was lowered from 14 to 12.5. So a little bit more healing efficiency in that regard. So I don't think Moira's all of a sudden going to be meta on that front, but you know, for someone who really struggles with Ana, right? Any change dealing with abilities and allies at full health is gonna be an immediate buff for me. And
Yes.
just a quality of life buff for other people. So like I'm all for that one.
Yeah, this is a great change for Ana. Great change for Ana.
No random interceptions, teammates. Thank you so much.
Yeah. And you know, it's definitely something that's great. I can't say one negative thing about this. It's a well-deserved buff because her healing shots already had this.
Mhm.
Like if you were fully healed, the healing would go through, like it just go through you to somebody else. So now they just did the same thing with, you know, the biotic grenade. Can't see any problem with this. And the Moira change, I think it's just gonna be it's gonna feel a lot better. Because after the changes to Moira, her healing was lacking.
Mhm.
Because you could just tell, like in team fights, you're just like, okay, I have to do damage now because I can't heal because you run out of P juice.
Yeah, there's too much suckage.
So quickly. Yeah, there's too much. So it's like anything they can help to make that feel more natural is good.
Mhm.
So very excited for those changes. The manually destroyed stuff is I'm just like, okay, whatever. Like I'm impartial to any of that.
I mean, it's not gonna change the Torbjorn place of the game, which you're just gonna be the turret anyways while you're dead.
Yeah. I can destroy my teleporter, Symmetra, while I'm dead. Cool. You're still dead.
Yep. All right. You know, we do have the PTR update, but we already brushed up on what's included with that because that was the new stuff they talked about in the dev update. So we don't really need to hammer that point home. What we do need to talk about is roster apocalypse part whatever fucking number we're on, and we're up there.
Yep.
So it is F5 season. We are in the Overwatch League off season for the foreseeable future. And there's definitely been a lot of shit that's gone down since our last episode. so
That's the thing,
so
it's
much
only been a
so.
week. Yeah.
So much so. Okay, let's see. How many teams do we have on here? 3, 5, 7, 9. Okay. We got 10 NA teams and 5 of the Asia teams. So, you know, that's 75% of the league that we need to talk about tonight.
Yes. We will not actually be going as in-depth as we had been.
No. But we will
Because,
mention
like-
all the movements, and
Yes.
some are definitely
Because,
more important.
Yes, and I will not sugarcoat this. A lot of these new people who got signed I have no idea who they are.
I mean, that is a fair point. More on that
Just
later,
because
though.
I don't know much about the tier 2 anymore. I haven't paid that much attention.
Right on. Well, let's start from the top. And by the top, I mean the best performing team. So let's talk about your defending back-to-back champions, the San Francisco Shock. So we got two moves here. One, they parted ways with their main support, Moth. And, that in itself, Ed, definitely sent, some shockwaves out there, right? Like, everyone's like, oh, shit. Like, where's Moth going to land? Like, that could potentially be, like, the biggest free agent sign-in during this entire offseason period. And then a little bit later, they did announce that they had signed FD God, formerly of the Paris Eternal.
Mm-hmm.
So, all in all, like, losing Moth is definitely a blow to this team. And, I think for the most part, a lot of us thought, like, that would be kind of an obvious re-signing. And we were kind of talking about the mentality of, championship teams and whether or not players were willing to, maybe take a cut from their salary in order to stick together as a team. But we haven't really heard so much about those sort of discussions on the esports front as opposed to what we have in the traditional sports. But when you're talking about losing someone who has been one of the centerpieces since the get-go, like, what were your thoughts, like, the moment this news hit? Were you surprised by this? Were you feeling like the income and talent just wouldn't be anywhere near that sort of, like, play potential?
Yeah. Okay. So they got rid of they didn't get rid of Moth. But I think it's a definitely a downgrade for the Shock.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody's gonna deny that it wasn't a downgrade for the Shock. Now the thing is with that said, they probably got the best replacement they could get, not named Moth, to come join their team. FD God is phenomenal. Now, I'm not gonna put phenomenal. He's good.
He gives all the Reddit Lucios a dream, Ed.
Yes, he does. I am just. I'm just not sold that they're doing, like, okay. If memory, I'm looking it up right now. I do not think FD God played anything but Lucio. And that's worrisome.
Okay.
I think he just played Lucio the entire time. So we don't know how he's going to actually perform as if, let's say, Mercy's, the thing that they need to do. Or maybe they need him to play Anna. And maybe he's just not up for it. So that is something that you have to keep an eye on. But I mean, that is very much nitpicking.
Mm-hmm.
Very much nitpicking.
Well, yeah, that was also, one of the major parts of the Shock's success was the fact that they had support players that they just didn't need to play because they could cover all the bases. So there were times where they were running double flex support when it was needed.
Yeah. Now, the big thing is I don't know if they've officially announced yet that Violet is coming back. I don't know if that's official yet. In which case, that is interesting because there are, like, I have read the rumors that Violet may be heading over to an Asian team. And if that's the case, then you know what, your support line. Well, you still have FD God and Twilight. you lost your two best supports. You did. But I'll be interested to see what actually happens there. But I mean, it's the Shock.
Mhm.
They have a stellar team regardless. Although I will say Moth was the the silent captain of that team. I think he was probably the most important member of that team. He was their steady Eddie. He was probably the best main support in the Overwatch League, and he just kills it, plain and simple. So their team got worse, but not by a whole lot. But it did get worse.
Mm-hmm. And
let's get on to the real change.
Their loss was another California team's gain because Moth did get picked up and signed by the Los Angeles Gladiators, which is why Ed is rocking that jersey. All right, so they went out, they got Shu. They got Moth.
The Shu train.
And I already know your thoughts on this. You've already calling it right now. It's the best support duo in the league, bar none. There's no discussion. I will say this on that front. When you look at all these sign-ins that have happened, regardless of if it's just one person or a complete overhaul to a specific line on the team, I don't know if there's pressure that is more packed on compared to this duo in itself. Because you're talking about a team who, early seasons of the Overwatch League, were super consistent. Then they fell off this past season. Now the restructuring, they have made some massive sign-ins. And that's a pretty hefty expectation to go out, pick up two huge names, two like really beloved support players at that. And then everyone has just kind of pigeonholed the Gladiators into that position now, where it's like, all right, now there's no excuses, right? Because a lot of people rate both Shu and Moth that highly.
Yep. This team, I have zero hesitation about the support line. I have no hesitation about the tank line. I do have some form of hesitation about the DPS line. But I also think that something will actually occur with the DPS line. And I actually disagree with you about having the most pressure put on them.
Are you thinking Dallas?
Dallas. Yeah. I think Dallas has so much more pressure on them than the LA Gladiators. Because it's the LA Gladiators, while they haven't won championships, they haven't been complete shit.
Mm-hmm.
And the Dallas Fuel have. Let's just put it plain and simple. They have. So like they've rebuilt their team 3 times now. Like from scratch 3 times. So and nothing has worked.
Mm-hmm.
But I think yes, they have super high expectations. I just don't know. Well, no, I do know that they will actually meet those expectations. Like, I don't think the expectations are, okay, they're going to dominate the league and win. But I think the expectations now are their top 5 team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And those are pretty reasonable expectations.
Yeah,
after these signings.
I feel like everyone kind of has that perception of when you look at these two pieces as standalones, they're both highly regarded. So together, everyone's kind of has this sense like this is the perfect marriage, so to speak.
Correct.
So I'm very anxious to see how that is going to play out. But, maybe this is going to be the thing that gives them that bit of stability that they were missing in this past season of the Overwatch League. So whether that means just getting them back to top 8 or, a deeper run into playoffs or something more, that remains to be seen. But, it's been very quiet on some of the other fronts in California, and Gliders have made some pretty big moves already. So now it's just like we're eagerly awaiting what the other movement is going to be on that front, because the California Cup was pretty one-sided when you compare the 3 teams, and now it's still hard to argue against the Shock in this case, but the Gladiators could be in contention here on that front.
Oh, they definitely could, and I fully expect it. They're not going to break my heart like Season 1 Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that was the biggest heartbreak ever.
Moving on, something we were talking about last week, actually. Let's talk about the Boston Uprising. So they parted ways with Axiom, who was, one of their main tanks, and then they went out and they picked up out of contenders, and also former Overwatch League player. You have I'm37, who was coming in at DPS to play Hitscan for this team. And, it's funny, we were talking about the rumor mill, how everyone was pretty confident. I'm37 really fits the bill for Boston in this case. Probably not going to be asking a ton of money. Did have a good turnaround, but, this was someone who we had talked about who was kind of just thrust upon the Overwatch League after speed running the path to pro. After playing a myriad of roles at a really short span during the GOATS meta, and now all of a sudden he's kind of honed in on those hit scan skills in contenders, and now he has found his way back to the Boston Uprising. And I know every season we're rolling our eyes oh, it's Boston, how much can one person really make a difference? And we're still upset that maybe some players are stuck in Boston jail or can't find a way out or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But, there's still something to be said with Boston, as is every year, in regards to trade value for players. And we've seen, especially with the playoff patch, how in demand Hitscan as a whole is, because there was a ton of double Hitscan compositions that really dominated the scene at that point in time, because it was a ton of Ashe and Tracer compositions. Do you feel a player like I'm37 would bring more consistent play than what we had seen in years past, knowing that Jerry was a very streaky player?
Mm-hmm. So when I saw this, I thought this was a beyond phenomenal signing for the Boston Uprising. I actually think of him as probably a better Jerry. The reason Jerry was so good because to be honest, at the beginning of the season, people just used his name as a meme, and then it turned out to be he was decent. Do I think Jerry's awesome? No, I don't think he's awesome. I think he's decent. I'm37 is the classic. I think he could be the classic rascal. He just got thrust into it too early. Kind of like Rascal. But then now that he's had time to hone his skill a little more, it's actually he's actually going to be pretty good. And I hate to say this, but outside of main tank, I do not hate the Boston Uprising team right now. With I'm37 and Color Hex, it's not a formidable DPS lineup, but I think it's a very high potential DPS lineup. And I really enjoy Punk as a flex tank, and Myungbong is definitely probably the best player on that roster as their flex support. Fusions is fucking horrible.
We've had this conversation last week.
Yeah. So signing I'm37, I think, was a phenomenal move. Mm-hmm. And he knows the system because he was on Uprising Academy. So he knows like the Boston system. He's familiar probably with some of the coaches and stuff like that. So it was a great signing, a really good signing by Boston. And I
Wait,
do not say that often. I don't say that often, but I think this was a really good signing.
I was biting my tongue. I didn't know whether I should say this, but would you go as far as to say like he knows the craftsmanship? Terrible jokes. Continue. There we go. Anyways, let's talk Atlanta.
All right, you can talk about this one. I will not be.
Atlanta signs another animal for the zoo by signing Pelican, who is an O2 Blast DPS player. And this is someone who honestly, like, he hasn't been on too many teams. He initially competed with WGS Armament, and he was on that team for, I want to say, like 6 or 7 months. Outside of that, he's been with O2 Blast since early 2019. And O2 Blast has honestly just been one of those teams out of Contenders Korea that have just been picked apart. Like, season after season, whether you're talking the start, whether you're talking mid-season, there's been a ton of talent on that team. That's where Montu came from. You have Kron, Myunbun. Tuba actually came through there. Highly. We have Rain. We have a ton of players that have seen play, and that doesn't even include, like, Yakpun, Stellar Ivy. This has basically been one of those teams that has been poached time and time again in Korea. And while maybe over the course of time they haven't been able to meet that same sort of success, they've still had a noticeable presence within Korea. And I know that team in itself actually just picked up Karayan, and Undine actually joined as a coach for O2 Blast. So they got some pretty nice pieces. So that was cool to see.
I will say this. I think the reason, and I actually know a tad bit about this. Him is, he's a gifted player, very gifted player. He would have been on a team last year. But he turned 18 in May of this year. So it's one of those, okay, people were just waiting for him to turn 18.
Right.
So this was, a good signing for Atlanta. I'm not positive what their DPS lineup is going to be with after this. Because I don't know if it's going to be Edison and Pelican. Sharp is still in there.
Well, he was primarily projectile in his career.
Okay. So I'll be interested to see what happens.
All right, let's move on. Dallas made its final signing. That's right. Dallas went wholesale with Paris Eternal, and they signed Exy. And I'll be honest, like, I am very frustrated with the community right now. Specifically when it comes to the Paris Eternal. And the amount of, like, dogpiling that has been happening with Avala, and everyone, like, scoffing at, like, how long some of these announcement tweets have been taken. Like, people forget, like, Avala is the only one doing anything there. Like, she's the last soldier on the front line for Paris, and people just are being relentless, and it pisses me off just seeing that, because it's definitely undeserved. And, she's doing everything she possibly can. She's only one person. Like, she's having to do all the tryouts, deal with the social media, do contract signings, and all of that crap. And it's just like, I hope she's drowning all of the negativity out, because she already has, like, enough pressure on her given the situation and just the environment that she's been put in. Because I wouldn't wish it upon anyone, and there's been a lot of talk on that end about, like, what the circumstances with Paris actually are going into this offseason. Now, that being said, Dallas Fuel, they made it abundantly clear, this is it. Like, this is the team. It is Decay plus Paris Eternal. Which, you're not wrong. That's basically what it is at this point. And
You mean Doa?
yeah, Doa. My bad.
Yes. I was
Um,
gonna be like, not the kid. I mean, this is a freaking formidable team. Because people wondering, all right, Doa Sparkle, is that gonna work?
Mhm.
And Ixie was like, oh, now that they have him, they have a freaking scary DPS lineup. They have a scary tank lineup with Fearless and Hanbin. I'm not as scared about their support line.
yeah, that's just a Dallas special.
Yeah, it's like, Jexay, people like him, but to me, he hasn't shown me much in his career. Like, he's been an average main support. Fielder was pretty good. I will give it that, but
Especially
I think,
on Pain.
yeah, it's so, Fielder, I think, is definitely going to be playing pretty darn well. And then you have Repel there to back up the supports. This is a very good team. This is another team along with the Gladiators. I think everyone kind of expects to be a top 5 team. And we talked about this last week. This was even before, or 2 weeks ago. This was before the Ixie signing.
Right.
This team was going to be a top 5 team. This just kind of solidifies it.
Right on. Moving on to Toronto. They have found their support duo for the Defiant. They went out and picked up main support Aztec and Ansunje. All right. So
I know, like, I'm going to flat out say, you just talk. I know zero about either one of them.
All right. So you got one player who is coming from World Game Star, that's WGS Phoenix. And before that, like, I'm pretty sure he was even on Uprising Academy before that, so there was a little bit of NA base as well. And Ansun had been picked up from Element Mystic, who is, like, one of the other, like, really young talents out there. He had recently turned 18 back in, looks like, February. But I've heard nothing but good things about this player. He definitely had a bigger showing, like during the playoffs, for Element Mystic. But they did eventually fall to World Game Star for that 3rd and 4th place. So I don't know too much about them. Aztec is a flex support in this case, but like, since I haven't been keeping up with Korea as much as I used to, just not being able to find the time, it's just, I'm not as well versed in the current crop of talent there as I was like a year or 2 ago, when really anytime there was Contenders Korea happening, I was typically tuning in at that point in time. But all in all, like, they have a very young core for that roster. Now, is that going to be a continued trend? We'll have to wait and see. Obviously, that re-signing of Beast really raised a lot of eyebrows, and
yes,
I don't know if these sign-ins are going to deter that sort of reaction as of yet. But they're not done with their sign-ins because they only have 4 players on their roster currently, so there's still going to be more to come. So this is still a work in progress on the Defiant front.
Yeah. Yep, I completely agree. This is a complete, it's a complete overhaul of the team. They have 2 questionable re-signings to me. Like, they have, like, okay, you brought Beats back and you brought Logics back. Nothing against either one of them. They're just like, okay. I figured they got rid of everyone else that they would, kind of start from scratch.
Right.
But then they brought those 2 back, so I don't know.
All right, so we got like 4 more NA teams still. So Philly, mostly like re-signing tweets going out for Poco, EQO, and Alarm. Obviously, you're not getting rid of your major rookie. And like the Poco re-signing, like after they got rid of Fury, you kind of sense like, all right, like they're probably gonna stick with Poco, but like we didn't really know for sure.
I hope they sign another off tank.
Yeah, especially
I
when you
think they.
factor
I think
in
they.
the
I,
handcuffing that was going on, you know?
yeah, I think they re-signed Poco because he's like the. How do I put this gently so it doesn't sound bad? Um, he he's the English speaking face of that team.
Okay.
And I think they really wanted that. I think they will sign another DPS, another off tank though.
Still some pretty big names on the market on that front. Outside of that, we got some announcements from the New York Excelsior, who have parted ways with Libero, Animo, and Sabiobi. They also re-signed Jonak. All right, Ed. So it is Jonak. He is the mainstay winner, so to speak, of the New York Excelsior. And I know there were a lot of rumors about Jonak potentially going to APAC for one of the Asia teams, and I don't like. We still don't know a whole lot about what this team is doing. There's been a couple things on the rumor mill in regards to potential sign-ins, which we're not going to get into because they're not official.
They're all rumors
as of yet. And outside of that, Washington also parted ways with a couple of players that we basically had already known about. So, Aim God, Janu, and Stitch all gone, but they did pick up Bebe, formerly of the Honcho Spark. And I know Yiska had reported about 2 other sign-ins as well. One of which was a former Spark player, and one was, I want to say the other one was Closure, formerly of the Dallas Fuel, all in all. But
Yep.
I
it
think
was
you
Closure,
and
Rhea.
I think you and I, we rated Bebe pretty high. Spark have definitely been a frustrating team. It definitely felt like they didn't quite meet up to like the sum of their parts. So there were a lot of times where it just felt like they were kind of like punching up, as
Yeah.
opposed to being affordable enough to like punch down at their opposition on that front. But I like to sign in from the Justice. I don't know where I would rate Aim God compared to Bebe, or if like this is a ladder move or a downgrade or an upgrade or anything like that. But we're getting a better sense of the direction that the Justice are wanting to take for this team, and to no one's surprise, they're going the Korean route. We all figured that was going to happen, especially when they were building around Decay and how much he improved that core. So how are you feeling about the introductions that they've been having around Decay?
I've liked the team so far. I'm a little, if all right, if the Rhea thing is correct, I think that's a massive downgrade. At off tank.
Yeah, he saw some significant downfalls this past season for sure.
Oh, for sure. So I just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of those things where I don't know. I like what they're doing with that team. I do actually like what they're doing. I feel bad for Spider because he's going to be buying so many jerseys. But it's one of those things where I need to see more of the team.
Right.
I just need to see more of the team because the DPS lineup of Jerry and Tuba to go with the K, I'm still not sold on Jerry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not. So I don't know. This team, and without knowing who their main support is going to be, I think that's also a pretty massive thing.
Right.
So it's just too early to tell for these guys.
Mhm.
It really is. We'll probably have to wait another week.
More than likely. Outside of that, one other NA announcement, this one coming from the LA Valiant, who have signed Adam. And I know everyone's like, all right, which one?
Really?
Or, I mean, if people are like, have been watching NA contenders anyway, they might just be assuming the Adam who was. I'm trying to remember what team he was even on. It's been that effing long. But it's funny, though,
Yeah.
Ed. So, okay, so when you're going on Wikipedia, right? Like, if you were like me, I was like, all right, which team was this guy from? So, like, you just type Adam, right? This is what it tells you at the top of the screen. For the American player, see Adam. And then there's also, like, the Australian player.
By the way, he was on XL2. and
Okay,
Cloud9.
XL2. Okay. Yes, I remember him from Cloud9 specifically. The problem is here, there's the US player, there's a Korean player, there's also an Australian player named Adam, and you're probably like, all right, well, which one was it? And it was the player from AU. So this is a flex tank player. He got picked up from Ground Zero Gaming, and Ed, you know, it's been a while since I've watched specifically AU contenders. Based off of what I've seen before that, he was with Order, who were another one of the mainstays out of that region. Ground Zero Gaming basically swept contenders. This past season. They were runner-ups against Mind Freak in the first season of 2020. But, you know, looking back, they've basically been like the top performer since season 1 of 2019, or at least Adam's teams have been doing that well. But I know I talked about it a little bit in our Discord earlier, but, you know, we know what's going on with the Valiant. You know, this franchise is up for sale. This was a team that went hard budget this past season, regardless of, you know, what was going on with CDL.
Mm-hmm.
And when you see them going out to pick up an AU player, that doesn't really stoke the fire as to say, like, oh yeah, like, they're spending money. Like, I saw that, I was like, this is probably going to be more the same, similar to the approach that they took that last season. And I've heard good things about Adam. Like, he's been hailed as kind of like the cream of the crop in regards to like Australian contenders players. I just don't know enough about this kid to really know how impactful he is going to be. But, you know, it seems like he's held to a pretty high regard by some of the community. So I'm probably going to go back and watch some of these AU matches, at least for the playoffs.
Yeah, no, it's, I mean, I just don't, it's not a region we know. So it's definitely something I think that we need to figure out. Like, we just don't know.
Mhm.
So I'm very interested to see what's going on with them. But yeah, we don't know shit about Adam. And we don't know anything about what the Valiant are trying to do.
Mhm.
So this is another one of those mystery type signings. I'm just like, I got nothing.
Absolutely. All right, so that's NA. A lot of stuff on that front. Let's move over to APAC. So we have the London Spitfire parting ways with Sanguinar and Bernard. And, you know, that second name is going to come back here in a little bit, because he stayed in APAC. But I saw that, and my first take was, you effing what? Because when I think of the identity of that team, it was 1, Glister. 2, Bernard. And I'm just like, well, shit. Now what? It's a rough go out
nope,
there.
it's we know what actually they're gonna do.
Mhm.
We do. We just know what's actually gonna happen with them.
It's just a matter of when.
Exactly.
When does the hurricane hit the shore?
Mm-hmm. So it's. I think I'm actually surprised we have not heard anything about Glister,
Mm-hmm.
because I assumed he was gonna get traded. At this point.
Yeah, and at this point, like even that's kind of up in the air.
Yeah. It's like what maybe they got him for so cheap that maybe they just are gonna keep him. I don't know. So it's an interesting aspect. Interesting.
All right. Well, let's talk about the Charge, who honestly, like, I think this team might be staying put with what they have with their roster. With the sign-ins. So they went out, they signed Mondu, Michaeli, and Choi Se-wan. So, looking at this lineup now, we have your tank line, Rio and Kron. You have your flex support in Kareev. Mondu's coming in for main support, and you got 3 DPS. They have more Korean talent than they do Chinese talent, so like this isn't like the Chinese haven, so to speak. And all in all, like I'm liking the sign-ins. Now, it has been a long time since I have watched Troye Siwan. I remember watching him when he was on Kondu Panthera, and this was like before like the whole like merge that happened with that team. After that, he was with Element Mystic for about a year before getting assigned to the Guangzhou Charge. So Element Mystic, another team who's been poached very heavily out of Contenders Korea on that front. But I specifically remember him as the projectile player on that lineup, mostly with Genji and Lefera. But, maybe we'll see some Echo Doomfist if he is meta at any point in time. Probably not. Just going based off of what we have seen, that's definitely not going to be the case. But all in all, like, I'm hopeful this team can just get situated, because there were a lot of times where I expected more out of them, and they just didn't deliver. And it was very similar to, like, my perception of how the Hangzhou Spark were doing. And then, you just see, like, these Chinese teams, and, like, you got one good one out of the bunch. Like, I want that to change. I want, like, the China Overwatch scene to just be more competitive through and through. Or even if it's just, I'm not saying it has to be even kill between the dragons and the hunters. Not to that extremity, right? Like, I just want it to be more competitive and not everyone just trying to fight out of the mud.
No, I get that. It's, I agree with you. I think this is basically it for them. They may sign one or two other like low level people, like just bodies for backups. But I think we have the core of this team.
Mm-hmm.
God, I'm not high on this team. I don't like but the thing is I've never been a Karib fan.
Mm-hmm.
I've never been like, ooh, he's awesome. I've always like, and I have always been like this. It's just like, you're okay. You're probably overrated a little. Let's just throw that out there. So yeah, it's one of those things where I don't know. I don't know much about like a lot of the players on this team either, and I think that's a problem. Like, Mondu, like the three new players that got Mondu, MYK,
Yeah, Mike
and
Haley. He was
Mike
on
Haley.
Buildy Gaming, which was the Spark Academy team.
Exactly, and yeah, it's just I don't know much about it. And you know what? And that's bad podcasting on my
Well,
part.
you know what?
I don't pay attention to Korean contenders all that much.
Well, you know what, Ed? Here, well, there is a positive side to this, right? The next team we're gonna talk about, you can actually talk about, right? Like these are players that we've seen in the Overwatch League, who just found new homes. So the Dragons have had two signings. They went out, they got Fate, and they signed Airster. All right, Ed. So
Okay.
I don't know what's going on with this main tank position for one. Like I've
correct.
tried to wrap my head around it. I don't know if Moon just sees something in Fate that nobody else sees.
Mm-hmm.
Or he's just lost all sense of reality.
I get that. I don't know what's going on with the main tank, but you know what? Fate is not a bad option. You know, obviously I don't think it's as good as Fearless.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't bad. Like it's definitely a decent signing. Let's just go with that. You know, he's gonna perform well. He did well with the Mayhem.
Mm-hmm.
He did well with the Valiant before that. Like Fate has performed well everywhere he's gone. So it's definitely something that I think it is gonna work out well for them. Not as well as the other signing they did.
I mean, okay, so it's still all Korean.
Yes, it's still all Korean.
It's just a matter of who's rotating out. Like, are they really gonna sit Fleta to play Airster? I don't think so.
They did it. I mean, that's the thing is, they benched Fleta in the playoffs.
This is true.
So, I mean, is it really that much difference?
I guess not. Either way, though, I think, like, I don't hate the Fate pick. I do think he will have a stronger foundation with this team, as opposed to the other teams that we have seen him on. So, you know, maybe this will be his final form, so to speak, for him. And he'll just prove all the naysayers wrong and have, like, that sort of, like, Sato effect.
Mm-hmm.
Where he just, like, throws his success in others people's faces. But, you know, when I saw the Airster sign in, I was like, that was not a team that I thought was even on the radar for him to land on. So that was kind of a pleasant surprise.
Yes. That was, like, I was like, oh, what's going on here? But nope, they went all in on that. So I was pleasantly surprised with that. So let's see what they actually can do.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we got two more teams. We have the Hanzhou Spark, who had parted ways with QOQ. They went out, they signed Liege, MCD, Takoyaki, and Bernard. Okay. They signed two off-tanks out of this lot. so for one, like, I was happy. Like, hey, Bernard got picked up. It destroyed my dream of having Bernard on the Dynasty. And I was like, God damn it. That happened. But then I'm like, wait, they just picked up Liege. And then all of a sudden I'm like, what is going on here? Like, I don't know if there's too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't know if they have a clear direction or if they just want, like, to say, have Leech playing the Sigma, Bernard on the Diva, or something like that. But I don't hate the sign-ins. But, you know, again, like, the Spark are just one of those teams who have had a hard time just getting their feet underneath them. And, you know, Takoyaki had been pretty good at times on, like, Reinhardt, which I wouldn't say has been Gushue's best option.
Yes.
Or even his secondary option. So I can understand that pick in particular, but picking up 2 off takes, kind of like back-to-back like that, did surprise me.
Yeah. I mean, the Bernard signing is phenomenal. I thought that was awesome. I think doing that. I don't know much about NCD or Liege, however you want to pronounce
Yes,
it.
Leech.
Liege. I don't know how you want to go about that route, but you know, I think it's definitely going to some big signings. Now Takoyaki, let's see, he's underage till April, so he should be back, right? Or he should be eligible by next.
April's a rumor for the start.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be. Ugh. Yeah, April 18th. It looks like. I hate this that I just don't know it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just don't know any of these players outside of Bernard.
Yeah, MCD was part of that Element Mystic core. He's been on the team for like well over a year at this point as well.
Yeah. So hopefully it makes him better. Do you think this is the end of Gushue?
No, I still think he'll definitely be playing the Winston. They're more mobile mate tanks. Takoyaki, from what I remember, especially in his like contenders play on the Reinhardt, was more. His playstyle fit more the bill of reading what the other Reinhardt player was doing. He's not like an aggressive Reinhardt player. He's a little bit more passive. He just likes to go base off of what he's seen his opposition doing. So he's really honed into that Rein game aspect of Reinhardt and like knowing when to swing, like knowing when to hold your shield, knowing when to just put the pressure. Yeah.
Know when to fold them.
Basically. So he's more on that wheelhouse, whereas Gushue is more of the aggressive. So this is more of a clash of stylistic approaches. So they could really play either way. But at the same time, that also kind of tells you a little bit of like what their supposed plan would be going into a map selection should they have Takoyaki in this case.
Yeah. That is very true. But didn't they have? All right, I'm just looking at their roster right now. Didn't they have an up and coming flex? God, Micah, M1KA.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't he supposed to be kind of like a hot thing for them? Or am I losing my mind?
Well, he was their main supports. It was him and Coldest, which were call-ups from their academy team.
Oh, Coldest. I'm thinking Coldest.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have IDK on main support too.
Right.
So, but I think Coldest is why they probably let Bebe go.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be nice as long as Gushue and Godsby stay on the team. I'm content with this team.
Right on, and
they have Bernard now.
Yeah, which is a plus. That would lead us to the final team for the week, the Chengdu Hunters. All right, so this is mostly like contenders news, like if I'm being honest, they moved
Yeah.
Lanza and Kyo off of the main roster to their academy team, which is Team Chaser. That's a weird name. But anyways, outside of that, we also have two-way contracts at this point. And they said like this was like a mutual agreement with the players. They have Yveltal and Leityon move into two-way contracts. So basically, we know just about the same about like the academy team as we do the main roster at this point. So it's just like, this is a weird. That's a weird position to be in, where it's just like, all right, like we got like 4 out of the 6 were here, and wait, what?
It's one of those things where you're just like, all right, we learned nothing about this team, just absolutely nothing.
Yeah, so it's like you still have your like a main tank, an off tank, a couple DPS, and like I think Molly is the only support at this point. Then,
so there's really nothing to report on the Hunters at this point.
Yeah, just that
they
have an academy team.
Yeah. We have an academy team, and we signed some of our current players to be two-way. All right, cool.
Right on.
All
so
right. There's nothing about the actual team there.
So out of this match, Ed, excluding the Moth sign-in, because that's the obvious one, what do you feel like at face value is the highest potential to rewrite the script for their team, would you say? Or have like the biggest sort of impact?
I have to say it because he's probably the best player that got signed. The Gladiators with Moth. Like, he's just so good. I think it's going to be that. If I was to pick another one outside of that, the Dragons. That would be my other one.
Yeah, I think for me, when I look at the Spark off-tank duo that they picked up, like, I've seen Liege's Sigma play, and it's cracked. Like, it is absolutely absurd. Bernard is definitely going to give you some more consistency on some of the other roles. I'm hoping they find a good, stable rotation there, because that tank line could be pretty scary moving forward. But, there's still a lot of unknowns even up to this point, even though, like, we've had, like, major announcements seemingly just about every day on the off-season front, so for all I know, there might have been more announcements during, the past hour and a half that, we'll have to wait until next week to talk about, but a lot of stuff happening seemingly every day, so, make sure you're hitting those F5 buttons on your keyboards to get caught up to date with all the latest. And, hopefully, right initially, like, with the thumbnails and everything, with the graphics, what team it is, because you can't do it based off of the Twitch profile picture, because they're all going to be your death and savior, Papa Jeffrey Cap, praise him. So good luck sorting that stuff out, but of course, always look at the handle. But, haven't seen any bait lately in regards to sign-ins. Maybe we're past that point of the off-season where that's completely died off.
No.
There will never be enough.
Yeah, there will never be enough.
All right. So yeah, that's basically everything, Ed. It's been a lot of stuff tonight.
Who knew this was like one of our old episodes?
I mean, we're not quite to that extent, but it's the closest
it's been. This is the longest
been.
episode we've had in like 6 to 8 months.
Something like that. But that being said, I think it is time that we close out shop for tonight. So if you guys want to help us out, please do us a favor. Head on over to iTunes and write us a review. Let us know how we're doing and if there is anything you would like to see incorporated into our podcast. Now, if you would like to show some support, you can do so via our Patreon, where you have tiers starting at just $1 a month. You can find more info there at patreon.com/OWL Network, where you too can join the likes of our master and above patrons, Daniel, Owl, and Kesha, in helping our network grow. And of course, outside of that, we do have a number of different ways how our listeners can contact our show. So, Ed and R, please let them know how they can do just that.
All right. So you can reach us through email at hndoverwatch@gmail.com, on Twitter, and that's at @hndoverwatch. We do have a website, and that's at owrecall.com. We do have a YouTube, and that's youtube.com/Overwatch League Network. We are on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. We also have a Twitch where we stream pretty regularly over at twitch.tv/OWLN show. We are a Twitch affiliate, so help support the show by subscribing to our channel and earn our network emoticon. We have the Overwatch League Network, which airs Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific. We have this show, Heroes Never Die, which normally airs at Wednesdays at 5 p.m. Pacific. And then on Tuesdays, normally, we have Tavern Tales, a Hearthstone Battlegrounds podcast, which airs at 5 p.m. Pacific over at twitch.tv/TavernTalesHS. You can follow me personally on Twitter, and that's at Ednar83, or on Twitch at twitch.tv/Ednar. Totem, where can they find you at?
Well, you can find me over on Twitter at TumblyDrunk, as well as Twitch at twitch.tv/TumblyDrunk. Now, guys, quick update on the podcast front. This Saturday, for all of our Hearthstone fans out there, we have a secret that is happening, recording Saturday afternoon. I cannot wait for that. We did get an update on Con Before the Storm, and honestly, Ed, I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about this. What I will say is the event is still being planned. It will be sometime in January, and there is an Overwatch panel. And I will leave it at that for now until I talk to Ro.
Yep.
Because who knows? Like we're still we're still a little bit off from that, but that is still happening, and you can bet your bottom dollar it will be more so focused on Overwatch 2 as opposed to esports, regardless of who may or may not be on the panel. But stay tuned for more updates on that front. But for now, I do want to thank you guys again for joining us for another episode of Heroes Never Die. This has been episode number 227. Go out, read that short story, Stone by Stone. Let us know what you think of it. Go get your wins for the challenge, which you have until really the end of the month. Go test out, the new replay viewer stuff on the PTR, all that good stuff. And of course, stay up to date on the Overwatch League front, because, we're kind of in some dark times for a while during this off season.
Yes.
And you gotta keep your mind occupied.
Mm-hmm.
So with that being said, guys, we will see you back maybe next week, maybe 2 weeks from now, whenever it's gonna be. I don't know. It depends on the news. We show up when the news shows up, whenever that is. Who knows?
Darn.
But you guys have a good night. We'll see you whenever.
All right. See you guys.